Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, May 8th, and we are on the European account. Now, when I logged in here, 2 packs were added from outside of the account. I don't know why that was. Did I possibly have a fan that gifted me 2 packs in Hearthstone on the European account? If they did, I've heard no comment or statement to that. I'll say thank you in case that is the case. It is also possible this is from a choose your champion thing, but then I wouldn't know why I would have gotten the 2 packs added from watching the event on Twitch on the European account instead of the main account. These are I'm more than happy to have more cards, certainly, and we'll do a pack opening. So maybe I'll log back in on Friday to the Americas account and find that there's a couple of packs that have been added there too. That would be nice. Now, for those packs, how many of those cards are going to be dusted? 9 out of 10. So I had most of them. Yeah, I'm not really struggling because I lack cards. I'm struggling because I'm lacking very specific high level cards and just time and desire to play between the different accounts. Alright, we have to play 3 Tavern Brawls. We want to re-roll this mech one, and we need to win 2 more victories with a warrior or rogue and play druid class cards. So this Tavern Brawl, we have to win once, which might be a problem too. We'll try this guy and see how this works. We spent so much time talking about the big stories in the previous recording. Now there's just a bunch of little stories and a lot of games that came out on Steam, so we're going to try and burn through these pretty fast. Maybe we could get through both the European and Asian account in one recording. I'm not sure. That really depends on just how much time it takes to get the daily quest done. I really only need to get 2 daily quests done, but I'd prefer to get all 3. A long Friday is never really appreciated because even fewer people hop on chat or watch on Fridays. So our first story here we have is Gamasutra. Revenue drops at Electronic Arts despite strong digital bookings. So yeah, EA not making as much money as they would like, or not making as much money as they normally would make.
Just as I expected.
And I think
I should feel bad.
I think the problem with EA, though, is they don't put out good quality products. They put out games as services, and that's not going to make the money anymore. Everybody has caught on to that scheme. GameIndustry.biz has a similar story. Apex Legends and Anthem can't save EA's 4th quarter revenue, and that income down double digits as the company falls off last year's pace, but publishers forecast a record-setting rebound ahead. The publisher forecast that. So what was last year that sold so well would be a good question to ask, but this is also an example of shareholders just wanting constantly more and more profit, so there can never be a bad month, and EA is definitely a big perpetrator of embracing that mentality. Whereas if EA were just a private company, they could say, okay, well, we didn't do so good this quarter, but we're gonna do better next quarter, or we have enough money so that that's not a big deal. Nintendo is kind of the exact opposite, at least Nintendo of Japan is, where they have allegedly.
Did you say you are truly evil or just evil enough?
Like, allegedly Nintendo has 100 years worth of money that they could be spending or could use to pay their employees and pay their bills instead of trying to sell a new product or be profitable. So theoretically Nintendo could go 100 years without producing anything and still be alright. I don't know if that's really true or not, but by playing very conservatively, financially speaking, and having a good nest egg to save your company, that's the way you should run businesses, but that is not the way investors want you to run businesses. If you have cash, they want you to either do stock buybacks and or acquisitions of new companies. They don't want you to just sit on the money and save it for a rainy day. And that's true for individuals too, is that a lot of people have trouble saving and keeping money for a rainy day, and then they're immediately bankrupted as soon as they have to go to one ER visit because they hadn't been expecting that and they hadn't been saving up for that. GameIndustry.biz has another article, Capcom's full year results boosted by software strength. It's kind of interesting how E3 is right after a lot of quarter 4, quarter 3 announcements. So if you have a bad quarter that you have to admit to some losses, you can almost instantly regain all of that the excitement for your product by having a good showing at E3. This Tavern Brawl, you pick one of 4 special abilities. We're fighting against someone who has a special ability that does bomb attack damage every time a minion dies. And we have a special ability that's something around spells, I believe. GameIndustry.biz has an article here, Capcom's full year's results boosted by software strength. Devil May Cry, Resident Evil 2, Remastered, and Monster Hunter drive profit to record levels. Capcom has certainly been doing good. Like the Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 7, sales are probably still pretty good. Devil May Cry 5, the worldwide publish of Monster Hunter World, the release of that worldwide for the first time and embracing the entire world, is giving Capcom a lot of money. So then the question becomes, why are they selling a fight stick with their logo on it that's way too expensive? Let's see.
On with the show.
Let's hit this and this and yeah. Let's see. Cast a spell. That's gonna give me a new weapon, and then do this, and that's gonna give me a new card. So every time I cast a spell, I get a new card. That's what my build is, I suppose. I wasn't really paying enough attention to it. GameIndustry.biz has an article, Germany considers new youth protection guidelines for mobile monetization deliberately broad draft guidelines leave questions hanging around enforcement. So Germany is Germany, I assume this is the country of Germany and not so much the European Union, out of Germany. Just thinking some youth protections. Even a representative of in the United States has put out a loot box bill that almost certainly has no support, if I was to guess, because if it did have any support,
in 5 years? Or when?
people,
I already know.
if it really had support, people would have been talking about it before this point. So I imagine that's not going anywhere.
On with the show, Tango!
I don't want to do that. I want something with death rattle, but I don't have any death rattles. So yeah, loot boxes are getting laws against them in a lot of places, and other forms of aggressive monetization and greed are getting threats against them legally, which is what everybody has been saying would happen, is that if they didn't regulate themselves, the governments would start regulating them. And it's kind of odd that the United States would even start to pretend like they would regulate such things, but so quickly. But yeah, they're falling in line in the same way as the rest of the countries are. So no longer, I think, are we going to be able to embrace late stage capitalism and unbridled total greed.
Job's done.
That's my hero ability, I guess. Game of Sutra has the same article. Key franchises helped Capcom to record profits for the second consecutive year. The thing I would like to see Capcom do now, since they are theoretically rich in money, is go back and remaster Resident Evil 4, get Resident Evil 5, 6, and 7 running better on my particular hardware, remaster all of those, get them running a little bit better. Also, I want them to invest into Resident Evil
I'm afraid you are nothing
8.
I haven't seen before.
And let's see. Still just gonna play rogue cards. We may very well on this Tavern Brawl struggle to get an actual victory, so this may take a while. I got lucky in the Americas account and someone just quit.
I only grow stronger, fool! Oh, flick me red!
It would be also nice if Capcom funded some new IP. Having a 4th or a 5th tentpole in the series probably isn't a terrible idea. Expand out, do something a little bit more experimental. Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, Monster Hunter World are all well-established games that aren't and probably shouldn't change their systems or the way the games play too much. Arguably, some of the Resident Evil games have been too experimental. So, if Capcom were to do some small indie games, that would be nice. Just if Capcom worked its way to replace EA, and it was a bigger company that didn't have a bunch of terrible monetization policies, that would be great too. Alright, I'm gonna take this one.
Hey, are you an applicant or an applicant?
Gamatsu has this article, and this one's a little surprising. The developers of the game Echo Ultra have shut down, but they had licensed the movie rights to the game, so Echo film is, quote, still in the works. Now this is weird because I wanted to buy Echo and I just never, it was never cheap enough, and it's still available on Steam right now, but it's not on sale, and I think it's like $25. So $25 for a small kind of indie game that has a lot of polish seems crazy. Seems crazy expensive. And it's kind of weird now because who are you really supporting now that the entire business has shut down?
How hard can you hit things?
I don't know what they expected, frankly. They clearly priced themselves out of business. At least that would be my guess. As far as how this really broke itself down, is that they never sold Echo at the right price, and now theoretically, there will be some holding company or holding entity that still owns Echo and still sells it. It says Echo will remain available in stores, so they're not announcing any reason to take it down. So this came out in September of 2017 with favorable reviews, and the price was the problem. It's straight up just the price. I would argue Echo also is a slightly weirder game, so some of that also makes some sense. Let's see. Charge.
Your magic only darkens this wood.
So here's Echo. You're walking through this like digital house thing, and it records your actions and makes clones of you that will play back those actions and try and catch you. And so it's kind of this cat and mouse game with very, very few assets, and they are probably asset flips, but they're polished very nicely and you look very good. So here you see it's mostly positive and very positive, but it is $24.99, and I would like to buy this game. I like to own this game. It's on my wish list, but who am I really supporting at this point? Because Echo Ultra sorry, is out of business. So like, what do you do here? Maybe the developers who worked for Ultra will split off and go to other companies. Maybe they just didn't have a good idea or weren't capable of working on making any of their ideas work. I would say Echo is probably an example of a game that really shows their limitations, even though they can make it visually polished and did an interesting programming thing with it. They really couldn't get a lot of level design in it or a lot of voice acting. I don't think there's any voice acting in the game. On the other hand, as a YouTuber, I could make the argument that, well, now this story is complete, and in the same way that Telltale is now out of business and I can just play the last few Telltale games once The Walking Dead once the final Walking Dead game is available. Let's see here. And plus 3 health. If I give this one charge, it won't do anything.
Magic only darkens this wood.
Let's see. Let's see. If I were to play this and do this. And yeah, there's nothing else I can do. So yeah, I could definitely use it as a justification to play Echo and say, well, this is a game and it was a great game and it was just way too expensive and didn't have enough money, I suppose, to advertise itself or push itself. Quite frankly, between when it came out in 2017 on Steam and and right now, they just did not do enough to they really just didn't do enough to make it a value add offer. Alright. I'm gonna die if I can't win in this turn anyways, so let's do this.
So many wonderful poisons.
Give a minion plus 3 attack. It's not good enough.
Your magic only darkens this wood.
See, he has like 15 more cards too, so I couldn't fatigue him. Next we have a game on Steam called Tug Wars, which looks like it's a virtual reality game of some sort. Oh, it's called Tag Wars, not Tug Wars. Misread that completely. I guess what this is you're scanning barcodes of your opponents. Weird game. So you're scanning the bar tags on people to tag them. It's $14.99 and multiplayer only VR game. So I don't think there will ever be enough people that would play this, quite frankly. And it seems like this is an odd idea where you're scanning barcodes instead of shooting things, probably because this is a Chinese game and that allows it to get sold in China instead of being a game where you'd just be shooting people with guns, which would make a lot more sense and be more familiar. Alright, third attempt now to win on the Towering Brawl, so we're hopefully gonna win. Next we have on Steam Unsubscribe the Game, which is obviously a troll game for $1.79, English only. That's all I'm going to give it time for. Quite frankly, I was going to jump over some of these games. I jumped over quite a few games in particular that were just, yeah, this is just troll games. Next we have Butterfly 2, which seems to be a combination of platforming and box pushing and Flappy Bird and simplistic games like that. It's $1.59. It's a very low effort game with a lot of languages. None of them Asian languages though. Interesting. After you play a minion, add a coin to your hand.
How irritating.
Next we have a game on Steam called Thunderpaw, which is looks like a fast-paced shooter platformer.
Must fight it out.
See, I don't want to be too cruel and just reject games because I'm on a roll. though. This is $4.19. I'm willing to give this one a follow. It doesn't look particularly interesting, but maybe if it played really well, there might be a game in here. Let's see. 2 damage. Let's see. Trigger friendly minions death rattle. What does this one do? Yeah, we'll just do that. So yeah, I'll give Thunderpaw a follow, even though it probably doesn't deserve it. And next we have a game on Steam called Late Cities Riders, which looks like a low effort racing game with some crazy 3D physics thrown in and a bunch of asset flips. This game is free, so I guess the price is right at least, but doesn't look like it's worth actually playing. So if I could get this on the field, or if I could get this on the field, but I'm having trouble finding any minion I can actually play. Next we have a game on Steam called Homeward Duck, which looks like a crazy asset flip space VR game. Let's see if I can get a better idea. It's free to play. Yeah, it looks like it is just ducks and picking up things and throwing things in VR. Yeah, free with no in-app purchases, but third-party end-user license agreement for no reason. Yep, nothing interesting there. Draw 2 minions. That.
There once was a man from Gilneas.
And let's see. That. And then that. Oh, I played wrong there. Okay, so I have a couple now. At least something I can do. But this guy who doubles your death rattles, plus all characters having a death rattle that does damage. Like, he's the one that's gonna win. Clearly. Let's see. This. And I guess we'll eat this. And then play this. And then do that. Start. Actually, come to think of it, if I had just done damage to that and then done damage to that, that would have probably worked better.
Job done.
But I've lost. Yep. What we're gonna play as this guy next, and I think we'll get a victory and pay a little bit more attention to this. At this point, even doing a tavern brawl that's just different, is not really welcome to me, because it just requires me to then come back and pay a lot of attention and learn new things, and I don't really want to learn new things in a tavern brawl that's only going to be played once. Alright, this one. Trigger friendly death rattle? No. No, it's this one. Death rattle's triggered twice. Play this guy. Meanwhile, Gamma Sutra has an article. This game, Mordhau, M-O-R-D-H-A-U, has sold over 500,000 copies in 1 week, which 500,000 copies is, according to what I can figure, quite a lot of copies. More than what would be a good amount of 300,000. It's nearly double that. Mordhau is a PC hack and slash game from the developer Triton. I don't think this is an Epic exclusive or anything. It's on Steam, so it was the Kickstarter. And people put in just a little bit less than 300,000. They sold 500,000 copies, so they're close to being able to potentially repay everybody who kickstarted it, but they don't have to, and they won't. So this seems like this is a game that I should pay more attention to. A lot of the games that are these sword hack and slash medieval times looking games don't catch my attention at all. So if there's one that's really good and sells well, I probably should give at least one a chance. Right. So now, work for Dr. Boom to deal 1 to 2 damage to a random enemy.
Hey, are you an applicant or an applicant?
Let's see. Where are we? Over here. I want to pay attention when it's my turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called Soviet Souls, which is, I assume, an attempt at like a Dead Cells game, but creating market confusion around Dark Souls, and also being a Russian troll game. I think this is the best. Russian troll game is probably the best descriptor, because you can see there's whole sections here that look like joke clones of Super Mario Brothers. It's $5.09, English, Russian, and Ukrainian as the languages. So yeah, that looks like a Russian troll game to me. And when I say Russian troll game, it doesn't really mean that it was made by anybody who was actually Russian. It might just be following the meme of weird or low quality Russian games or Russian products, which is kind of a meme of a Yakov Smirnov and back when Russia was under direct communist control. So yeah, that's working pretty good. Just need to have a lot of people on the field at all times.
Job's done.
Next we have a game on Steam called The Ritual indie horror game. It looks like it's an asset flip horror game. A little bit of dark screenshot syndrome, but not terrible. But yeah, nothing here looks quality enough to interest me. $4.99. I don't know why you would have indie horror game in your title. That seems ridiculous. English is the only language. There's so many of games like this. Giant Bomb went on a weird rant, I suppose, because they were saying Steam and particularly VR has just become all lewd games, porn games, adult games, and I'm like, not really. So I don't know if they're misinformed or if they're just pushing a narrative. This is just going to be the narrative for this week, because it really isn't the case. Like, we've been following every single game that's come out on Steam, and while there are lewd games coming out, certainly we've covered a lot of them, the number is not particularly high. There's still way more sports games, particularly for VR games, that come out, and way more tower defense games and archery games and just tech demo games that have come out for VR. So this very well may just be an instance of their bias, a bias existing, and it showing itself and coloring their perspective on reality. There's been actually very few adult VR games because that's not really the overlap there. Most adult games are extremely low effort and trying to sell the most. And then they said, well, a lot of the adult games are the top selling or best selling of new and trending. And I'm like, well, instead of saying that like that's a bad thing, you should realize that means there's actually a market for that kind of content, and because that market is finding a place to spend its money and increase the video game industry as a whole and improve upon the strength of the industry. And so like it's odd to hear mainstream video game journalists complain about the video game industry growing, becoming, embracing a more varied audience, or having success. Like that seems weird just because of your own weird, oddly it's so odd SJW is being extremely liberal or against
Or is that me?
lewd games and adult games, that they've somehow become conservative and puritanical. Oh yeah. So if you want to win the Tavern Brawl, clearly you play as this guy and do the combination I played, because this is just easy peasy. Moving on, we have an article, we have a game on Steam, MMA Arena. Looks like it's a fighting game with MMA characters, although it's a card game also, so it's kind of weird to do a deck building card game, which I assume is what this is, around MMA. And I would say the graphics don't look good enough for this to make sense. But I'm willing to give it a follow because it is a unique idea. Certainly a different kind of spin. I guess the question would be, is there really an audience or fan base of MMA fighters that they would be interested in seeing these cartoon depictions of either real or imaginary MMA fighters? This game is 30% off for $4.89, and it doesn't have any information showing up about multiplayer. It's just single player, so that's kind of questionable too. Poker Night at the Inventory is back on Steam. Wasn't this taken off on Steam? Off of Steam? When Telltale went out of business? Apparently it's back. So yeah, I'll give that game a follow. Let's see. Come on. Oh, I screwed up. I screwed up because I wasn't paying attention enough. I swear if this guy somehow wins because of that mistake, that'll be awful. let's see.
You are no fun.
It's just, I'm not even trying to cover news right now. I'm just trying to focus on what's happening in front of my face. Yeah, okay, we've got we got problems. Taunt.
This will be grisly.
And this.
Side effects? No. Trust me.
Hit that. I think I'm gonna lose at this rate. I was really close and then I screwed up. And he's playing against my...
So many wonderful poisons.
He's got 14 cards, so he's not gonna run out of cards. Take control of a random enemy. Yeah, I screwed that up. At least we played a couple Druid class cards, I guess. But try that again, and let's keep on going with the news. Next, we have a game on Steam called Cell Trios, I guess. It doesn't look visually appealing. It looks like it's a bunch of MS Paint level graphics for what looks like a side shooter, for lack of a better descriptor. $5.99, single player only, English only is the language. Yep. Nothing interesting for that. Alright, so I need extremely cheap cards to start off with. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Trials of Fire, which seems to be a strategy game of some sort. Single player, turn-based strategy game. Well, the thing about a strategy game like this is it really is just going to come down to how it plays. This looks very polished for what it is. So this really is just a matter of how many positive reviews does it have, and if it has enough, if it comes out of early access, I would be willing to play this. This is $15.99.
Hey, are you an applicant or an applicant?
I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this. Play that. So yeah, Trials of Fire deserves to be on the follow list. I don't see anything that would suggest it shouldn't.
This'll be easy.
This might
Just a few
sting.
questions
Might
and a
sting.
fight to the death.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Brief Battles, which seems like you're fighting for underwear. It seems like it's one of those Smash Brothers style platform fighting games. I wouldn't even really call it a Smash Brothers game. It says it's single player, but it's going to be pretty multiplayer focused. We kind of know that going in. And when the screenshots load, yeah, there's nothing particularly amazingly interesting about this. There's far too many games like this that are coming out these days. $14.99, lots of language support. Yeah, I don't think Brief Battles is the kind of game that would benefit from very many people criticizing or reviewing it in the first place, because it really is going to boil down to, are you having fun playing with your friends or playing with strangers?
So many wonderful poisons.
Okay. Interesting. Moving on, Gematsu has this article. Maze-based arcade game Scrap Rush is coming west for the Switch and the PC this summer. It's going to be an eShop game. Well, it launched in Japan via the Switch eShop on April 16th. Let's see if we can see the announcement trailer. Yeah, it seems like it's a Bomberman clone, for lack of a better term. Maybe there are Bomberman clones out there like Scrap Rush that are better than the Bomberman games that have been released. I know that there was, like in Bomberman 64, all kinds of outfits and things that you could you could get, and they would unlock other elements. They'd unlock appearances and such, and you'd have to do challenges to unlock the different outfits in Bomberman 64. Quite frankly, that was the kind of things that happen in that's the kind of things that happened in previous generations, and it's not really acceptable these days to do things, to release games with so much time wasters. Well, you can release games like that, it's just most people don't want to play them. The idea of spending an extra 60 hours in a game to unlock cosmetic little hats and such have left most things, with the exception of Counter-Strike Go and their knife skins.
Pain or suffering, I can't decide.
That is the perfect one to play. Because now every time I get a new thing, of course this guy could, if he doesn't die, he could do a major amount of damage to me. Come on, one more hit. Wow, that was a lot of actions. That was a lot of actions. Hey, but we got another victory with the Rogue Warrior too, so... So we played 3 Tavern Brawls. The Tavern Brawls suck. Not something I want to spend my time on. We got an epic card, a rare card, and 3 common cards. Not terrible. And I don't think I have quite a complete collection of classic cards, so there might be a legendary, maybe even an epic on the European account. But I wouldn't be surprised if 9 out of those 10 cards get dusted. No, apparently it's 11. No, 7, 8. Yeah, it is 9. 9 out of 10 get dusted, leaving the 1 new card to be this epic from Rise of the Shadows. Which, okay, that's fine. Now, where are we? We need to play Druid class cards and win a victory with Rogue Warrior. Let's hop in here, play ranked, play custom Rogue. I think that's working fine. This story is a bit of a head scratcher for me from TechRaptor. Dead Cells is coming to iOS devices this summer. I really wonder how many people are going to want to play Dead Cells on an iPad or an iPhone, which is the iOS devices, and I assume it's not macOS support, so that you can play Dead Cells on your on later versions that I don't even know if they've transitioned Mac and Apple products from macOS to iOS yet. I know they were planning on doing that. This article explains it further. The iOS release will be carefully redesigned for the iPhone, iPad with a revamped interface. The 2 game mode will be available, the original and auto hit. You'll be able to customize the buttons, positions, and sizes with more touch control options. There will be a MFI external controller support. That's made for iPhone, I believe. External controller support, and there will be no freemium monetization, but instead a premium one-time purchase for the full Dead Cells experience for $9.99 with no ads or free-to-play mechanics. They will also be available in 11 languages. So there's a bit of a trailer here that I'll skip through and see if it shows how... I just feel like Dead Cells is too tight of a game to be... Let's go back to this. Too tight of a game to be playing on a screen like this and with touchscreen interfaces. It seems like it's a really never been tried before or experiment on taking what effectively was a AAA game, if not a AAA game. It was an indie game, so they call it like a AAA game sometimes. Some people do. But yeah, it's like a AAA game, and yet they're trying to port it to one of the weakest platforms possible. They've ported it to everything else at this point, so I guess they might as well keep going. It would be like if they tried to get Dead Cells to run on a Raspberry Pi, even the most powerful and available at the moment. Probably not super optimized to place a brand new game that I assume is running off of Unity, and Unity can help some cross-platform development certainly, but you are going to have to do a lot of optimization for weaker processors. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article here. Starbreeze seeks funding to avoid an imminent liquidity shortfall. Basically, Starbreeze is out of money as they're waiting for Double Fine to publish Psychonauts 2. The Swedish company's Q1 report suggests it won't last 12 months without a new source of funds. And I don't know if maybe that's perfect for Double Fine, because maybe the publishing rights will get sold cheap or get reverted back to Double Fine if Starbreeze goes out of business. It was only a few years ago that Starbreeze embraced this idea that they were going to no longer just be the Payday developers, which is I believe who they are, and they made Payday 1 and Payday 2, and instead they were going to be a licensor and publisher and make a bunch of money that way. But it certainly has not worked for them since then. Apparently Payday 3 is also in development. I didn't even realize they were making a Payday 3, and I've really never felt any interest in playing the Payday games. Let's see. Let's see. I'll take that. So wait till the 7th turn, I can give Leroy Jenkins Wind Fury. That'll be interesting. Let's see. This is a weird story. TechRaptor has an article. Bethesda is running a Doom-based fitness series called Ripped and Tear. Let's see. I guess this is as promotion for Doom Eternal and the 25th anniversary of the original Doom this year. That's why that's a good reason. That's an interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna play Doom for Halloween certainly. The Ripper and Tear. Is it Ripped and Tear or Ripper and Tear? It says Ripped up here, and then it says Ripper down here. There's a decent attempt at framing personal fitness in a way most gamers would probably be able to get behind. It's like going over the course of the next few weeks.
So many options.
Well, that's certainly an interesting thing. Can I destroy this? Well, that didn't work. Not paying enough attention, sorry. That's probably for the better, though. Next, Gamma Citra has an article. Get a job, join Sucker Punch Productions as a narrative writer. That's in Bellevue, Washington. Sucker Punch was looking for a writer for Ghost of Tsushima, which that's weird that you'd be making a Japanese game and you need a narrative writer for this Japanese game, and you're set in Bellevue, Washington. So it feels like your Japanese game more than likely is going to feel like it's off the mark and poorly written just by the people in the location you're hiring from. When clearly if you wanted a Japanese samurai style game, you would have either licensed one of the many samurai stories already written, or hired somebody from Japan who would have some understanding of this to write for you. Let's see. Are we at 7 yet? No. Random mage spell. Draw 2 cards.
Good tickets don't come cheap.
Do this. And do this. TechRaptor has an article here. The Fanatical Arc System Works bundle is ready for battle. I don't usually cover Fanatical things and skip over these articles, but Arc System Works bundle would include 2D fighters like Under Night in Birth EXE Late, Arcana Hearts 3 Love Max, Guilty Gear 2 X2 Reloaded, Guilty Gear Isuka, Inferno Climber. So looks like some lesser known Arc Systems Works fighting games. Alright. Let's do this.
Here we go.
Again, that was probably an article. That was probably an article from TechRaptor I could have skipped. Next we have a game industry biz article. Game Workers Unite, which is calling for unionization, but has yet to show any real success so far. They're calling for testimonies against reported sexual predators at Quantic Dreams. French developer claims no knowledge of any incidences and urges victims to contact their relative authorities. Like, I saw this originally phrased as they were investigating sexual harassment and assault.
So many.
This mostly, I think, comes over the people putting employees' heads on porn stars' bodies type activity, and mostly then it also comes around the IT department refusing to do their job, and just French people in general, I think, being pains in the butt. So it does feel like Quantic Dreams has some problems, but this is, I would also say, an example of Game Workers Unite being this organization that needs to be very careful about what its stated goals are and what its actions are going to be if it really wants to form a union and not just turn into a SJW lynch mob of allocations. Game Workers Unite has no business. It sounds harsh, but they really don't have any business investigating assaults reports or sexual predators at any company. They don't have the authority to investigate that, and whatever they find is going to be tainted and very possibly could hurt court cases and other cases. Game Workers Unite should stay behind their name and push for unionization and not push for anything else. Once they're a union, once they are in a position of authority and where they can negotiate, then they can bring up their concerns in the form of negotiating with the companies directly. There is currently at the moment no union under Game Workers Unite, so they're just inserting themselves into a situation they really shouldn't be inserting themselves into. And inherently, if I was working in the video game industry and I saw that Game Workers Unite was getting in the middle of something that they have nothing to be getting in the middle of, well, then I'd go, well, you're not focusing on things that you could actually affect change on, so you're not being effective, so why would I want to be a member of Game Workers Unite? It's also worth mentioning that it seems like most of the people who are parts of Game Workers Unite are doing it in secret to protect from rebuttal, but I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that a lot of the people who are running Game Workers Unite, that there's actually fewer people than you would think, and most of them are indie people who really don't work in the industry at all. That's just my tinfoil hat theory. And there's definitely some Anita Sarkeesian type people out there that might say the right thing, but really would be the absolute worst people to run something like Game Workers Unite. I am personally think they should unionize, but they need to unionize for the right things, the things that are undisputed, things that are obvious, things that they can correct.
Hello?
They need to be unionizing for better salaries, better hours, better working conditions, better job security. Those are super easy to focus on. Singling down to one company and how
Here we go.
how horrible one company is versus another seems
Hello.
like it's not going to help the industry in the long run. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Cosmic Cash, which looks like a shoot 'em up game. It looks fine, it's just not my style of game. Although this does also seem like it has some kind of gambling element in it instead of actually being a shoot 'em up. Weird. It's not like a real world money gambling, but it's $1.99, and definitely seems like there is some money aspect to it. For I guess you earn money as you get better at killing the enemy.
I can't do that. Here we go.
Job done.
GameIndustry.biz. Here's a story that's kind of on the opposite side of that previous story. NetherRealm Studio is investigating crunch and toxicity allegations. So this NetherRealm Studio themselves are saying they're investigating allegations of toxicity and crunch. Now, they're probably very biased and going to find that it wasn't as bad as people are claiming, even if it was way worse than what people are claiming. But at the very least, compared to a third-party agency like Game Workers Unite that has no power at all, if NetherRealm Studio says, "Oh, actually, this is terrible, and we're going to actually focus and spend our effort to
Here we go.
to improve this situation," they could actually enact changes if they want to. They're in a position to actually enforce and enact changes. The developer vows to improve our company environment. There is certainly something that probably could have been improved in the Mortal Kombat series. For the last few versions of Mortal Kombat, if there was a happier, longer employed, longer lasting, more established development team there, instead of burning employees out and forcing them to crunch and then laying them off. Let's, I guess, play some druid cards, because that's something at least we might be able to accomplish. So yeah, if it's almost a completely different team that made Mortal Kombat 9 versus a completely different team that made, or nearly a completely different team that made Mortal Kombat 10, it's probably not the case. It's probably more just they laid off all the QA people. But if you're mentally a different person because you've been worn out and overworked, that's also a case. 2. Mortal Kombat as a series has failed to have the top spot as a fighting game series in probably decades, and that has to come down to the way the games are developed on an almost annual pace, and they're designed to sell to the average person and not a top tier fighting enthusiast. Most other AAA fighting games, at least one of those in the past decade has been in the top spot, whether it was Street Fighter or whether it was Soul Calibur or something else. At least that's my perspective. I may be totally wrong about that, but it seems like Mortal Kombat is always a distant third or a distant fourth in the list. Speaking of mediocre fighting games, we have a game on Steam called Supernatural Super Squad Fighting. This is almost certainly just some asset flips from a mobile game turned into a fighting game. $11.24 discounted. That is ridiculously high and expensive for what looks like a extremely low effort game. So yeah, I don't want to give that any more time. Let's see. Yeah, if I could just get a million on the field. Next we have a game on Steam called Beat Crash, which is just Beat Saber, except for things are being thrown at you of a random assortment. It's just so many Beat Saber clones are coming out now because Beat Saber was popular a few months ago. This requires VR, it's $9.99. Bunch of language support of the Asian countries. Yep, nothing there of any interest. Let's see. Can I play anything? I'm still...
What?
Well, you mean I can do this. So here's an interesting follow-up story on GameIndustry.biz. The World Health Organization's classification of creating up this fake diagnosis of gaming disorder. It could cost South Korean economy over $9 billion. The Korean Culture Ministry writes the World Health Organization protesting the ICD-11 draft, which I don't know what ICD actually stands for. International Classification of Diseases. I've gone on to this rant before. There's no such thing as gaming disorder. There cannot be such thing as gaming disorder or gaming obsession. There's obsessive compulsive disorder, which expresses itself in any varied and infinite number of ways. Some people can have that, but the idea that you're making this special classification is stupid. It is going to create an entire industry of fraudulent hucksters scamming parents out on the promises of curing a disease that doesn't exist. It is backwards thinking, anti-science thought that will be used in countries like in the Middle East and in China to literally imprison and probably torture children who are just possibly children of lower class or dissenting or minority groups. This is not good for the world in any way whatsoever. So yeah, that's the short version of the rant. And South Korea is on the right side. South Korea has the moneyed interest in it, certainly. And I would argue that South Korea also, if gaming disorder was an actual disease, would be the epicenter of such a disease. And they would be arguing the exact opposite side if it were true. Because there's more gamers in South Korea than anywhere else. And quite frankly, gaming as a pastime or as a potential career is going to be one of the few careers that won't be automated, and one of the few careers left, as everything else is handed over to mechanisms and robots. So we need gaming as a career of some sort, just to help maintain capitalism for a little bit longer, I suppose, until everybody embraces something like universal basic income at least, and then you could just play gaming not as a career but just as a hobby. Right. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. And I'm going to do let's see. This.
For the wild.
Back off!
Job's done.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Mini Gal 4XY, which it says it's a light strategy game set in space. It's hard to get an idea of what this is. It looks like it might be a card-based gameplay. This one has enough visual polish that I think it deserves a chance. And if it's a fast-paced galaxy domination strategy game, what I usually hate about space games and flying around in space games is the fact that they take forever. This is $3.99, single player only, English and French as the languages. I think it deserves a follow. See. Gamatsu has an article, the Otome, that's maiden visual novel, Rever Dun Menage, has been announced for the Switch. So yes, it's a maiden novel, maiden visual novel, focused towards girls. Seems like a female lead character and 5 male potential romantic interests. It has a little bit of an interesting art style, more linear, sharp draw lines. Yeah. Let's see. I'll watch this. Really don't have time to be watching stuff like that though, so. Do I have enough to? I'm gonna just play some more cards.
I can see.
There we go. Yeah, the trailer for the game just shows off the different guys and shows off some art style, and that's all it really shows. Did I play enough druid cards though? No, I still have like 17 more druid cards to play. GameIndustry.biz has an article, UK charts in a quiet release week. The top 10 still is led by Days Gone and Mortal Kombat 11. Despite 60% sales drop week over week, Days Gone leads the UK retail again for the top, as the top 4 titles retain their positions. Because this is just pre-E3 sales. That's not good for Days Gone, though. You really would be hard-pressed to make an argument that Days Gone is a huge success just because it held the top fighting spot when it is down by 60%. And I haven't heard anything about Days Gone that would make me want to play it more. I was ambivalent about it when it was being announced and when it came out, and I'm still ambivalent about it now. It's really a game that would have done a lot better if it had a big surprise early in the game and turned out to be something very different from what people expected, since people didn't really expect much of it. Alright, well, there goes my strategy out the window. This is a weird story. TechRaptor has an article. A Virtual Boy fighting game tournament is taking place in New York City on May 8th. Part of, I guess, Retro RGB and the NYC Furby? Is that what that says? F-U-R-B-Y? I believe there's only a couple of fighting games that were ever made for the Virtual Boy, so unless they have found some way to port, they've ported some games over. I don't know what they're gonna be. TechRaptor says it's amazing that there are enough working Virtual Boys still in existence in one location to hold the tournament. Second, someone actually developed fighting games for the Virtual Boy. Let's see. It'll be streamed online on Retro RBG's YouTube channel and NYC Furby's Twitch channel. Of course, I don't think there's any capture cards for the Virtual Boy either, so you're not going to actually be able to see any of the content, and they don't seem to be mentioning what game they would be playing, or what games they would be playing. Yep, the Virtual Boy, mostly hamstrung by the fact that they did not have blue or green lasers at the time that the Virtual Boy was developed. That's why it had red only, and I don't know if there could have been a way to filter the red into a white, because through just a film or a gel or something like that, that probably would have been a somewhat smarter move, but they stuck with the red. I don't know why they came out with the product, quite frankly, at all. It would have been so smart to have that in development for another decade or two, but yeah, it came out, it sold terribly. It was universally panned as a bad idea. It was supposed to be the Game Boy replacement, and it didn't work. It's kind of the number one reason why virtual reality was dismissed and laughed at for at least a decade.
What shall we hunt?
Deal damage equal to your hero's attack to a minion.
Soiled!
Oh, I guess I'm missing the main logo here that says Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting will be played on it. Yeah. I think Teleroboxing was actually a really decent game for Virtual Boy, but I guess Street Fighter 2 either got ported or I don't know what else would be the case here. Let's see. If I do this and then this,
For the wild.
that in the turn. GameIndustry.biz has an article. EA's plan for a record year revolves around ongoing game. Apex Legends hopes are high as it heads to mobile and China, while the publisher projects unit sales of up to 8 million for single-player Jedi Fallen Order. I have no idea if Jedi Fallen Order will ever be finished and released, and I suspect Apex Legends isn't going to sell as well if it's allowed to sell at all in China. They really are putting all their hopes in China there. Gamma Sutra has the same article. The Echo developer closes down. They really don't have anything new to say there.
Time waits for no one.
Tech Raptor has an article. Crush Your Friendships and Scrap Rush coming to PC and Nintendo Switch this summer. We already talked about Scrap Rush. Also. Let's see. Komatsu has an article. Style platform Gunlord X is coming to the Switch on May 22nd. Yeah, this looks like a platforming shooting game. Don't know as far as quality on any of that, though. Let's see. Yep, it looks like it's a hyper shooter style game. I haven't played a game like this in a long time where it's just constantly fire. I guess it's a shooter game though. Whether you're playing as a ship or you're playing as a person that sometimes can walk on platforms, it's still really just a shooter game.
The Earth Mother was busy.
My hand is
Yeah,
too full.
Gunlord X, probably not that interesting.
Flower power.
Well, this doesn't look like English, but we'll see if I can decode this title. ESP RA.DE M2 Shot Triggers Release Field Test set for May 10 to the 23rd. M2 will host a field test for M2 Shot Triggers release of ESP Raid Day. What is this? It looks interesting, but I have no idea what this. It's a field test will run the Windows substrate version of this, I assume, game. Like, I'm still not sure it's a game. Let's see. It's apparently a shoot 'em up. Let's see. Platforms haven't been announced, but they're testing it on PC, so that probably tells you something. Wow. What a name. That's the kind of name you probably need to change. Make it make a little bit more sense.
What shall we hunt?
Time waits for no one. For the wild.
There we go. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Marvel Strike Force and Shadowgun Legends have been honored by the 2019 Google Play Awards. Let's see.
I'm almost out of
Several other games. Old School RuneScape and Harry Potter's Hogwarts Mystery. I think the Harry Potter game is actually horrible, so getting awarded anything is weird. Gorgoa, I think, probably deserves something. Chuchel probably is a pretty good game. Cube Escape from Rusty Lake maybe makes some sense. A Tale for Two, I think that's a pretty decent game. What you're seeing here though is that even when Google does Google Play Awards, that they're rather struggling to find candidates and games worth mentioning. There really aren't a lot of good games on the cell phone market in general, whether it's Google Play or iOS or any other cell phone service. Next, we have a game on Steam called Never Let Me Awake, which is not English. This is clearly a low-effort horror asset flip game. It looks a little polished, but unfortunately, that's what horror asset flip games look like these days. $4.99, single player, English only. 2 to 3 hours of gameplay is what they say it will take. First-person psychological survival horror game, like so many others we have seen. Alright. Can we do this, and then this, and then this? This will be interesting because if a minion dies, will I get a crystal? And even if I do get a crystal, does that matter? Because I've already got 10 crystals.
Job done.
This next story, let's see if we can win here. I don't know if we can or not, because if he can kill this 7 damage. Right. This is 8.
For the wild.
So do I want to kill this guy? Or what?
That's not a valid target.
It's just in the turn. So hopefully he doesn't have the card that wins the game if he has no cards in on the field or in his hand or in his deck. This should work. We should get a victory, although we are just trying to play druid cards right now, but it would get us up in rank play. We have like 2 more druid cards we need to play. Alright. This article is kind of a big article because it reveals something that I've been saying for a while now, that you can't make money in China at the moment, or likely in the next few years, if not decade. Tencent gives up on monetizing PUBG in China. The long wait for approval prompts the Chinese publisher to migrate users to a new battle royale title called Game for Peace, which I assume is just PUBG with some skins and changing of the title and the story. This game, A Game for Peace, celebrates the military. I assume that would be the Chinese military, instead of yeah, they're saying, let's see, the company's Weibo post also announced Game for Peace, a battle royale title with similar features to PUBG, but with which Bloomberg described as a homage to the Chinese military. Game for Peace has already been approved for monetization and has a function to support account migration for PUBG players. So what you have here is Bluehole, the company I believe that owns PUBG, was forced to work with Tencent to do any business in China and give over the code and the intellectual property to Tencent. And
What shall we hunt?
Bluehole is now not getting their game sold in China and making any money from that, and yet PUBG conveniently has, and yet Tencent conveniently has this other game that they've made that they're just forcing people in China to move over to and play. It's complete shenanigans, a total flim-flam, a total bait-and-switch move to both the player base and the consumers that wanted to play PUBG, and to Bluehole that was forced in the first place to work with Tencent in the first place. On top of which, now the Chinese government is happy because the game is promoting the Chinese military and acting as propaganda to all the youths in China. The game that was approved is rather ridiculous, and it makes you glad for things like free speech and the Constitution in the United States. Let's see. Oh, I'm looking at the chat. Mahmood is on the chat. It's been a very long time since Mahmood's been around. He's probably been working hard as, I think he would probably be a resident now because I think he graduated. He says, "Hi Rydo, how are you?" I'm doing pretty good. Just churning along, riding the YouTube down to the gutter as YouTube streamers, I'm sure, all complain about it getting worse and worse and more difficult to try to have a career as a YouTuber.
Got one.
But yeah, nothing too terrible happening. A lot of Star Wars videos airing right now, and people claiming Star Wars music as their own, whether they are the actual owners of the Star Wars music or not.
I must consider.
Let's see. Next we have a story from GameIndustry.biz. Dundee launches Summer of Games. The city gears up for a program of public, academic, and industry events. This is in the UK. So, if anybody is interested, I guess they could investigate that more. I'm still not really hot on the UK video game development market. It seems like a lot of the problems of developing and selling a game in China are disturbingly similar to the problems that you would have in England and possibly not so much other countries in the UK. And of course Brexit is hanging over everybody's head. So trying to develop a new game in England right now is a nightmare. But some people are certainly doing it, and there's a few that have caught my eye and are interesting. Let's see. What do I want to do?
The Earth Mother was busy.
This, and we have like a 7, and let's hit this. So this and this and this and that and that, and then we'll just end the train there. Next we have a game on Steam called Minesweeper Park VR, which looks like a low-effort asset flip VR game trying to make a 3D Minesweeper, which this is probably the only way that a Minesweeper game would work in 3D, is by making what looks like a 3D cube of eyeballs. But boy, does that not look visually appealing. That's 99 cents requires VR. English is the only language it supports. So that's a hard pass. And they are doing everything.
Put this apple on your head.
Trying to burn through all the news because I don't want to go into a third recording, but we haven't even hit the Asian account, so unless I can actually burn through all the news, we're probably going to have to make a third recording. But moving forward, we have a game on Steam called Infected Shelter, which says it's an RPG adventure game. To me, it looks more like it's more of a beat-em-up style game. It doesn't look terrible. I would say the graphics may be a little rough, but only slightly rough. It looks pretty varied. Seems like it might have some upgrades you get as you're doing a beat 'em up. Doesn't look too bad. When it comes out of early access, I might consider it. It's $8.99 discounted, English only. I'll put it on the follow list and see how people like it. Apparently one of the characters is a wheelchair bound character. Let's see. It's co-op or single player, local multiplayer.
Time waits for no one.
Where my trees at?
Let's see. In the turn there. Next we have a game on Steam that's come out called Ride with the Reaper, which looks like a simplistic graphics racing, always going straight up. Well, no, there was one curve. Yeah, it looks like a low effort racing game. They want $9.59 discounted, and they have a deluxe version with a soundtrack. It's English and Spanish as far as the language, Spain Spanish. Yeah, I don't think visually there's anything there that would interest people. This is the kind of game that maybe does have an arcade style to it that makes it fun. But if it is actually good, I think people would review it and mention it, and I heavily suspect it isn't.
For the
Go
wild.
ahead and hit that. Let's see. I'm moving on with the news. Gematsu has an article. Labyrinth of Galleria, Coven of Dusk has been delayed to the spring of 2020 in Japan. So this game, I don't think has even been announced if it's coming to the West. It's a PS4 and Vita game, and being delayed for Vita probably means that there won't be a Vita version. It looks like it's probably a visual novel style game, if I was to guess. Well, they're saying it's an RPG. Alright. Alright. Well, that's, I think, enough for here. Let's go ahead and jump over to the Asian account and keep it within this recording. Because if I burn through the daily quests, and well, if I just burn through the news, I can play off screen to get the daily quest done, and that would be kind of my goal,
Back from your adventure?
to speed this process up. 2 packs were added to my Asian account also, so I imagine that means this is a case of just needing to log back into the Americas account, and then I can open those packs. And so I only need to get a Paladin and Priest victory and a Watch and Learn, which that definitely will be done off screen, I think, and play 3 Tavern Brawls. So I could actually get quite a bit of overlap in this. I guess it just paid off to choose your champion and start it playing on Twitch, which is all I did. Is I just started watching it on Twitch and left it running in a tab on Twitch, and that worked, I guess. Get me a couple more packs, and then those couple of packs can get me 80 dust in this case. That's not a terrible trade. Now the question is, will any of these be a Paladin or Priest deck? I don't think they are. For this, let's see. This might be Paladin, or this might be Paladin. I think this is Warrior. This is Paladin. I don't see any Priests. Or is this Paladin? Yeah, this would be Paladin. So maybe that's Priest? Whatever. We'll play this. Give all your minions Divine Shield. Great. So if I can win this, that would be great. I don't talk too much about LibRetro and their updates, but they apparently have reduced SNES 9X 2002 input lag by 1 to 2 frames, which when you're talking Super NES, that's probably only running between 20 and 40 frames per second. Like, I doubt the Super NES was getting up to 60 frames per second. Reducing input lag even by 1 frame is a considerable amount. I don't know if there's anything more that really needs to be said about that, other than yes, it's been improved. Now the question to take from this too is that might really be just the most recent version of SNES 9X 2002, whereas if you're running a RetroPie setup and running off a Raspberry Pi computer, you're probably running extremely old versions of the software that are being backported very slowly, or relatively slowly at least. So you probably won't see much of a victory, much of a change or any change because of this. But if you are running LibRetro on a PC, a modern PC, it more than likely would be super powerful enough to run all the newest versions of the cores and run everything very smoothly. Up to, I would say, the PS3 I think still has a little bit of trouble, and the Nintendo 64 might have a little bit of trouble on some games on PC, and modern Xbox One and PlayStation 5 things probably don't even have cores. The Dolphin emulator, which I don't know if that's part of LibRetro or not, is still working to run Switch games smoothly. Let's see.
No more candles.
Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Azure Lane Crosswave adds a support character, Vestal. Azure Lane being the gacha game where you have anime characters that are personifications of giant boats, military boats. Azure Lane Crosswave is coming out for the PS4 in Japan and North America and Europe in 2020. Well, August 29th in Japan, 2020 in North America. So this game is planning to come to the West, which will be weird, certainly. It's also weird that it's Maybe Crosswave is not so much a gacha game, because I don't know how you would do a gacha game on the PlayStation 4. It's tagged as an RPG game.
Reporting for duty. Reporting for duty. Reporting for duty. Reporting for duty. Job's done.
So yeah, another character being added to the mix. Next, Gamatsu has an article. The Tales of series, Tales of Vesperia, Tales of Berseria, things like that, has topped 20 million sales, units sold. So they've released a commemorative wallpaper and social network icons for whatever that interests you. Let's see. Tales of Vesperia, I believe, is the latest one. Tales of Fantasia for the Super Famicom was the first one. According to this, Tales of Festival 2019 will run between June 15th and June 16th in Japan in the Yokohama area. Yeah, so you could get some icons if you're outside of Japan. Apparently it's on sale too. So let's see what that Steam sale actually says. Divine Shield 1-2 plants. Okay. And Divine Shield. It probably would have been better to give him Wind Fury.
The battle! The battle! The battle! The battle!
So yeah, it seems like Tales of Berseria is 75% off. Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition is 33% off. So it looks like Tales of Symphonia is 75%. Tales of Zestiria is 50% off. And then a lot of DLC. I'm not sure if you need to actually buy all these DLC elements. But yeah. These Bandai Namco Tales of games are on sale right now. Let's see. How do we want to do this? Yeah, that was a mistake. I don't understand this card. Summon a minion from each player's deck they fight. Yeah, I don't see the reason for the dual card. Next we have a game on Steam called Tiger Tank 59 Winter Salt. This looks terrible. MS Paint graphics. It's so visually unappealing, I don't really need to go any further. It's $2.69 discounted. It has 10 Steam achievements. And it's English only. It's part of a bundle too. Okay. Let's do all of this.
The better to eat you. The better to eat you.
There we go. Yeah, I think I'm gonna win this. But he may have a way of turning this around. Next we have a
I
game
have no
on Steam
time for
called
games.
Dusty Raging Fist, and it looks animated very well. Looks like it's a either fighting game or beat 'em up game. And since it's tagged action adventure game, I assume it's a beat 'em up game. Let's see. Yeah. It is a beat 'em up game. It looks like it's animated pretty well. It's $8.99 discounted, single player or co-op, lots of languages, Western languages supported, and Japanese. 23 achievements. Yeah, this definitely deserves a follow. It's visually appreciated. There we go. And see, now we're in a great position because all I have to do for a daily quest is watch and learn, which maybe I can do if anybody is online, and we'll send some friend requests for the person we just played, and I can do watch and learn off screen, and I just need to play 2 more tavern brawls, which arguably I might be able to pull off just by playing and then immediately conceding if I need to save some time, but I don't really need to save some time because we've got still a decent amount. Turn all of those into dust. There we go. So just have to jump back in the Tavern Brawl. Maybe Thursday the new expansion will come out. I kind of don't even care. I'll check when I get around to it, and that's pretty much all I'm willing to guarantee at this point. Is that, yeah, when I get around to it, I'll look, and that's that.
Mr. Chew versus Mr. Chew.
You are in my way.
Let's see.
You are in my way.
Gamatsu has an article, NES, Nintendo Switch Online adds Donkey Kong Jr. versus Excitebike, which is effectively close to a sequel to Excitebike 1 and Clue Clue Land. I wanted to see more about Clue Clue Land, but I hadn't really seen any of that. That seems to be the same games for both the West and the East. Alright, so this is Clue Clue Land. Looks kind of like a Bomberman style game. And Donkey Kong Jr. is, obviously everybody knows what this is. And versus Excitebike just has a 2-player mode for Excitebike. But yeah, no difference in releases. You would kind of think that there would be. But I feel like maybe Nintendo is scraping the bottom of the barrel right now. Next we have a game on Steam called Midnight Remastered, which looks like an RPG Maker horror game. The question, I suppose, is there actually an original Midnight game? This one wants 99 cents discounted. So let's see if this developer, yeah, they haven't made anything called Midnight before that I can see.
Hey, are you an applicant or an applicant?
Let's see. There we go. Every turn I'm just going to do that. Yeah, it says it's a remaster of the 2017 web game Midnight. Collect the 7 letters of deadly sins and repent your past offenses.
Just a few questions.
I could probably give this a follow. I could probably follow this and see if people actually like this web game enough to the point where it would justify playing what I would classify as a extremely zoomed in RPG Maker game that is, using 8-bit graphics and has dark screenshot syndrome, as most of the screenshots are incredibly dark. Yeah, there's just nothing here that attracts me to this as a product. So yeah, I'm gonna skip that. TechRaptor has an article, Bleach Your Opponents in Goat of Duty closed beta coming May 2019. Goat of Duty, I believe, is a satirical Call of Duty clone from the developers of Goat Simulator. The game was just announced a few days ago, and it's probably going to be really short.
How hard can you hit things?
Would be my guess, and it's kind of silly that they're doing it at all. Goat Simulator, kind of running out of gags to do. So they probably should just work on a new product and make an actual game that people would actually be interested in. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dear Ashley, which is almost certainly a low-effort asset flip game. Play a designer who has lost himself shuffling through the fantasy of his mind. In other words, it's a bunch of pre-bought assets just mixed together with no real story. English language is not even supported. It's $2.69. It's Chinese only, a cheap Chinese product. We're seeing more and more of those. Okay. Next we have a game on Steam called Spark in the Digital Daydream, which looks like a low effort, terrible game also, but at least this time it's free to play, so the price is right. Doesn't have any in-app purchases or anything like that, so Spark in the Digital Daydream was a student project and 100% free. In lieu of paying the game, please consider donating to your favorite charity. That's kind of nice. I might put this on the fall list so that because I like to cover student projects. That being said, I think I won't, because this is a pretty awful looking game. But that really is what a student project would look like for most instances, because there's a difference between a programmer and an animator. And if you can't put an animator and a programmer and a sound engineer and a writer all in the same room alongside some other specialists, you're not going to have a polished, good-looking product. Let's see.
Okay, clock's ticking. Oh, or is that me?
See, also damages minions next to whomever this attacks. So in the turn here, Gamma Sutra has the same article. Bandai Namco's long-running Tales series has crossed the 20 million in lifetime sales. Nothing, I guess, too much to say on top of that, though. Rush and talk. TechRaptor has an article, The Legal Dilemma of Capcom Home Arcade's usage of the emulator FB Alpha. Isn't that Final Burn Alpha? Is the full name? Let's see what they get around to. here. In the license agreement, you may not sell, lease, rent, or otherwise seek to gain monetary profit from Final Burn Alpha. Let's see. Final Burn Alpha uses code from MAME, which is open source emulator. So, if you're interested in reading this article, I suppose it really depends on whether you're interested more in this obviously gonna fail, super expensive Capcom fight stick, 2-player fight stick. It'll probably fail and go out of business before anybody could even get around to suing Capcom for using Final Burn Alpha when they shouldn't. So, the real legality of this would require a court case to come to it. It's basically not news until it is news. Like it's been talked about before, but until somebody sues and it goes to a court case and there's an actual decision, those are the points when there's the beginning of a court case and the end of a court case. That's when you make a news story out of it. The potential that Capcom is doing something illegal isn't really news, because the potential that any company is doing something illegal is so high. Let's do this. And do this. And do this.
Job's done.
And return. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Bithell Games developed John Wick Hex has been announced for consoles and PCs. A fast-paced, action-oriented strategy game based on the John Wick film franchise. I was thinking it was a mix between John Wick and Jonah Hex, the comic book character, but because the two characters really aren't too different anyways. But I guess it is just based on the John Wick game. This is going to be exclusively released for the Epic Store for anybody interested. It might be a good game, it might not. It probably is going to be a small indie, uninteresting game. The graphics here don't look particularly good. This might not be so much about... These might be cutscenes that you're seeing. It looks very much like a mobile game. And this is a Gamatsu instance where all the screenshots are blurry again. Alright.
Job's done.
Let's move on. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called As We Know It. It's apparently a Western visual novel. Doesn't look terribly animated, doesn't look greatly animated.
Guess you really bombed.
They're saying it's more of a simulation. Yeah. Seems like half simulation, half visual novel. Seems like you're probably going to see the same drab backgrounds because everybody's stuck in a dystopian bunker. $19.99 though, with no discount. That's really, really expensive. Several endings, not even telling you how many. And English only with no full audio. Yeah, they're asking way too much in it for this game. And I imagine if we looked at this developer, they made this other game called Pinewood Island, which is rated positively by like 11 people. This came out a couple years ago, so it got no real coverage at all. And this one was tagged sexual content, so they're basically reusing their art, their characters. I think as we know it is a pass for our purposes. It's too expensive. You're getting up to the level of top tier visual novel prices if you're asking $20 and you're not giving me direct impressions that the game is actually worth that amount.
I'm here for revenge.
Oh, flick me, Rex.
I think we already talked about this article, but TechRaptor has a different spin on it, I'm sure. New German legislation targeting aggressive mobile monetization for children. So, yeah, we somewhat skimmed this article. Every country seems like they're going to jump on board with trying to legislate away any mobilization or monetization particularly targeted at children, but often in countries any monetization that they disagree with targeted to even adults.
Are you an applicant or an applicant?
Gamma Sutra has the same article. Tencent shuts down PUBG Mobile in China following approval struggles. So yeah, we already talked about that.
This'll be easy. Just a few questions and a fight.
This was
to the
kind
death.
of the big story of today. Because TechRaptor has the same article, Tencent replacing PUBG with patriotic Chinese game for peace. Let's see, Gamatsu has an article, Fire Emblem Heroes adds darkness within heroes, Marita, Barkuda, Kurin, and Tiki. So, Fire Emblem Heroes being the mobile RPG game, lesser known,
How hard
I
can you hit
suppose.
things?
Job's done.
And then in return,
Reporting for duty. Reporting for duty.
next we have a game on Steam called Blamo, which looks like a low effort MS Paint graphics style game where you're just throwing things at each other. Looks like Monkeys, an old basic game. Early access, free to play. Yeah, English only. Not the quality of game that really needs to exist on Steam. It's really questionable. What do the developers of a game like Blamo think they're going to accomplish? Particularly since it's not even charging a price. TechRaptor has an article, Rage 2 BFG will be exclusive to the Deluxe Edition and Collector's Edition at launch. So there's a big freaking gun that's going to be a skin of something or just a unique weapon in Rage 2. But if you don't buy the Deluxe or Collector's Editions, you don't get it. I'm also not sure that the Rage 2 is coming to Steam immediately or PC at all, quite frankly. I'd have to go back and double check to see what platforms Bethesda is even launching it on. But there definitely is a pre-order exclusive or exclusive to owning the deluxe edition, which that certainly sucks.
Close the gates! Incoming!
Now I don't need to actually win here. While we're doing this though, let's add another friend so we can see if I can get a watch and learn. TechRaptor has this article. Castlevania soundtracks have been added to 3 music streaming services. I believe this is a instance of... Oops, dropped my mouse. One sec. Yeah, I think this is an instance of the Castlevania soundtracks had been already released on some streaming services, but or maybe this is just the same article. I'm not sure. Having not played any of the older Castlevania games, I'm not sure why I would want to listen to these songs. Even if I had played the older games, it's very questionable that I would be the type of person that would want to listen to video game soundtracks when to video game soundtracks when I'm not actually playing the video games. That seems just weird and out of place. This. This.
Job's done.
And the turn. Moving on, the next story we have is Conan Exile's anniversary update is here and a free week arrives soon. So it's been a year or more. 1 year after its full release that Conan Exiles has come out. At this point, I think you can say it was a very ambitious in its visuals and then not very ambitious in anything else game. And I would have very much appreciated that, appreciated a single player story experience set with the visuals of Conan Exiles over a open world multiplayer Minecraft style clone just with the hard edge of a Conan series. And I think that's a problem with all the Conan games, that they are too interested in selling them as hardcore and selling games as hardcore and adult that they don't bother to make it a quality product in the first place. Let's see. Here.
Lurks in the
Remember, Conan Exiles was the game that you start as a character crucified to a cross, and it had a dong slider and breast slider, and that was the thing that people were most interested in. And I saw some streamers definitely try to make some footage of it, and the actual game was just kind of boring and uninteresting and unfinished, very unfinished from the parts I saw. Maybe a year in it is now a finished product, but I doubt it's much of a finished product. Let's see. Let's add one more friend request. Let's see. I can't do the watch and learn, so I would have to jump back to something like the main account or jump back to the European account, which I think there is still a daily quest to do there. Hey, a legendary. And 2 rares.
Rare, rare.
Thank goodness for a legendary.
Legendary.
But that's a legendary on the Rise of the Shadows cards, so not as helpful as I would have liked. Because I doubt I'll do anything with those Rise of the Shadow cards. And yeah, this might come out tomorrow, and it might not. Let's just sit here and wrap up. I'll stop talking about games, and we'll just cover the news, and we'll leave the rest for Friday to talk about. So Gamma Sutra has an article. EA is in advanced negotiations to bring Apex Legends to China and mobile. Good luck with that. If PUBG can't make it, I am fairly certain Apex Legends won't make it. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article. Sci-fi mech game War Tech Fighters deploys on consoles June 27th. I haven't heard anything about this game, so I don't know if it's going to be good or not. It also doesn't seem like it's coming to PC, which if it was a good mech game, I would think it would be coming to PC. Maybe it already is on PC. Oh yeah, it is. So it's mostly positive on PC already, which that gives you, I guess, maybe some more of an indication. I'll put this on the follow list, or probably just put it on the wish list actually, come to think of it. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Nintendo says the 3DS demand is stable despite notable declines. I would argue that, yeah, they've pretty much abandoned the 3DS for either the Switch or the 2DS, and they're kind of splitting the audience between the two. Let's see. Revolution Software is trying to hire a senior technical designer and a gameplay designer for their new game that they're developing based on a sequel to Beyond the Steel Sky, or Beneath the Steel Sky. If you're in the UK, I think that's where Revolution Software is. TechRaptor has an article here. Revisit Minecraft Classic in your own browser for free. Of course, Minecraft Classic would be pretty simplistic by today's standards, and I don't know why anybody would really want to play Minecraft Classic. But Mojang has released it. Go to classic.minecraft.net. It's almost just a test of HTML5 game designing in general. TechRaptor has an article here. A quick chat with Pharaoh Hound Games about Sons of Ra, which looks like it's a tabletop style game in a digital format. And this is more of an interview and a hype announcement about a game than talking about the actual game. The actual game looks kind of boring and maybe a tower defense-y. We mentioned this earlier. TechRaptor has the article if you're interested. Loot box ban bill to be introduced by U.S. Senator Josh Hawley. People are making a lot of news and hay about this. I suspect it has no support and won't pass whatsoever. So yeah, I seriously doubt this will get anything more than just some press people. I imagine that, you know, mainstream news media won't even bother talking about this bill, and because they're all too busy talking about politics of other sorts. So yeah, it's pretty much a non-bill, like so many bills where it's just done for political points. Until it happens, maybe it will get passed, and I'm totally wrong about that. If it does, then I'll report it like it's news, and we'll see if the president actually signs it. TechRaptor has an article. Starbreeze is seeking funding to avoid a liquidity shortfall. We've already talked about this, so that's the same article. We can skip that. GameIndustry.biz has the same article. U.S. legislator proposes loot box ban, and I don't think a pure loot box ban will happen. TechCrafter has a review for Konami Arcade Classics Anniversary Collection. Let's see what they said about these games. I think most of these Konami games weren't very interesting. It was a kind of bad collection of very old games, and that's kind of the problem. So they give it a 6.5 good, but yeah, lackluster creation, limited game selection, and a ramshackle presentation. So doesn't seem like they did a very good job. They were just trying to make a few bucks off of it. Gamma Sutra, we already talked about this. Supercell invests 3.8 million into the Swedish studio Luelu Games, so we don't need to talk about that again. Gamatsu has an article. Spanish retailers list Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory for the Switch. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Western version of that coming out for the Switch. I don't know how well a Digimon game will sell in the West for the Switch, but it might sell pretty well. Alright. Let's see. Just really want to get the basic bits of information. Ooh. And while we're over here, still trying to find somebody that is online. TechRaptor has an article here. BioWare removes reward crates from Anthem in patch 1.1.1. Let's see. The patch contains a number of fixes in quality of life, and as well as a significant gameplay change. They're removing Elysian caches from Anthem. The reward crates were originally added to the game back in March. The crates provide players with rewards for completing strongholds and keeping up to date with daily challenges. Elysium caches contained cosmetic items and crafting materials, but never armor or weapons. BioWare says Elysium caches have always been planned as a temporary thing. That's because Anthem is an unfinished mess of a game. But once you give them something, you really can't take it away. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few people still playing Anthem that are now upset because the reward crates are gone. They don't seem like they were loot boxes per se. So I don't think there would have been any real complaint about it because of that. It was also just giving cosmetics, which most people wouldn't complain about that either. TechRaptor has the same story. Riot Game employee walkout highlights. There's a statement that you could read from the walkout. Just some tweets that happened. Let's see. It seems like there's some tweets that happened quite a bit, and people posting pictures and such. See, blah blah blah. It seems like it's heavily female people posting their pictures, and then a lot of other people not posting their pictures. Whether that means something or not, I don't know. I already talked about how the walkout really was undernumbered, so it kind of doesn't matter that you can show a dozen or two tweets of people saying that they were at the walkout or not. It's like, you wanted 500 people, you got 150. That's not success. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article. Nintendo says the reality is that Chinese market is almost all mobile game and PC games. Nintendo president Shuntaro Furukawa cools enthusiasm around the Chinese launch of the Switch. Looking forward, we don't expect our video game business in China to easily expand. Is another quote. Yeah, I think Nintendo's got the right idea, and they would know more than anybody else that China is really not a place to sell video games unless you're selling a Chinese-made mobile game or a Chinese-made PC game. And those are the only things that are really selling. And that brings me to the Humble Bundle store. And I guess I can look to see if there are any Humble Bundles that are new, and then we're gonna end the stream. New Humble Monthly, Call of Duty Black Ops. I never do the Humble Monthly, and that's it. The other game bundle is the Lego games that has 5 days left or 9 days left. And there's like 13 new tweets on my Twitter feed, which almost certainly isn't going to have any new news worth mentioning. We still very much are in the slump, pre-E3 slump of announcements of games and news, and if people like Randy Pitchford and other drama can just stop happening, this would have been almost a completely silent week with no real controversy whatsoever to speak of. But yeah, I suspect for Friday we'll have more controversy to speak of and more games to talk about, and then that will be that. And this is going to be the end of this stream. Thanks to Mahmood for saying hi. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.